Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Stand-up comedian Erin Jackson comes home to the D.C. Improv in Washington, D.C. tomorrow and Saturday night. I spoke with her about her rise from Howard University to Netflix stardom, appearing on Tiffany Haddish's They Ready, and writing for Wanda Sykes in the Upshaws. Erin Jackson, hey, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Erin will be coming Friday the 11th and Saturday the 12th to the DC Improv. Thanks so much for joining us. You got your start around down in DC, didn't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Improv was the first stage I ever performed on, believe it or not. Yeah. So I love DC, and I went to Howard. I lived there for quite a while. So DC is my other home.
It's fantastic. Well, what sort of stuff are we gonna, if we've seen you here in DC before, if our listeners, to entice them to come out this time, what sort of stuff might we talk about this time? Do you pack a little more politics or DC centric stuff, when you come down here as opposed to say New York, maybe?
It's always funny. I always think I want to talk politics when I get to DC, and it's kind of hit or miss in terms of like people are like, I did this all day. Can you please talk about something else? But I do have a lot to say. But it's, not stuff that'll divide a room. And yeah, I got some thoughts. So yeah, I have a couple things to say about politics, Jason. Maybe that would surprise you as a comedian 2020, but it's not going to be all that. It's just going to be, I'm doing some new things in my life, Jason.
Yeah, we talked last April, I think you came on with us.
Yeah, and, I came back at the beginning of when they reopened.
Yeah. So how has COVID life been back then versus now? Because, I think when we talked, it was last April. So like the vaccines were like just starting to roll out. Things were looking up, and then like came all these variants and stuff. And now it feels like every couple months it's like a new reality.
Yeah. It's like you have hope, and then it's dashed, I was hopeful probably in April. I had just got my vaccine. And now I've just got another vaccine. So it's the same, but different. But yeah, I have some thoughts about COVID life. I have some thoughts about therapy, which I just began, which has been fun. But just in general, same old observations about life and people and family. And, if you've seen it before and liked it, I think you'll come out and enjoy. I've got a great opener. Who's going to be with me this weekend. Her name is Amina Imani, and she's great. And yeah, so it'll be fun. It'll be a fun weekend.
Definitely sounds like it. Now I know recently, at least I know my wife and I just watched you on the Tiffany Haddish They Ready thing. How big of a treat was it to do that, not only with her, but I'm sure that post doing that, I'm sure it's been a little bit of a boost to the comedy career.
It's been great. I mean, that came out, we taped it actually when we were still, in September of 2020. So things were still, kind of tense, and we didn't know what we were doing, and we taped it outside, but it's been a great opportunity, obviously, for Tiffany to share her platform with me, especially because we didn't really know each other in the real world. She knew my comedy, but we'd not met. So that was so gracious of her. It's been great, for the career, but I've also kind of pivoted a bit during the pandemic into writing. So I'm doing a lot. I'm writing for TV and not touring as much. So this is really fun for me to like be back out there on the road. But yeah, I'm actually writing for a show on Netflix now called The Upshaws. It's got Kim Fields and Wanda Sykes and Mike Epps. So that's my day job, and comedy is my night job.
Well, plug that show a little more. I mean, you just dropped some huge names on us. That's
Yeah.
A star-studded cast, but explain just the general premise of the Upshaws.
Sure. The Upshaws is a show about a Black family in the Midwest. It's set in Indianapolis. Married couple, Mike Epps and Kim Fields, and Wanda Sykes plays Kim Fields' character's sister on the show, and it's your Midwest kind of slice of life sitcom. It's super funny and sharp. It's it's a not for network TV kind of sitcom, so that's why it's on Netflix. But it's such a treat to work with those great actors and comics every day. And yeah, season 2 is out. I mean, season 1 is out. Season 2 we're working on, and hopefully we'll be able to get it out there soon, and people will love it.
Nice. And when you say not for network TV, I assume you mean it gives you some freedom to not pull any punches with, some
Absolutely. A lot.
language and jokes and stuff like
Yes,
that.
quite a bit of edge. Yeah,
Well, that's
it's a
probably
lot of
really fun
fun.
to that's probably really fun to write for.
It is.
Well, just in case our listeners maybe missed, our interview last year in 2021, remind them really quick of and you mentioned it a little at the top, but remind them how you got started at Howard and and got into this whole stand-up thing to begin with.
Well, I was in DC still because I went to Howard, but I didn't start comedy till about 2 or 3 years later. I took a class at the Improv. Actually, it was a 1 day seminar. It was before they had the huge comedy school that they have now, but I think it was maybe like their first class. And it was just like a 1 day seminar on how to be a comedian and joke writing and everything you need to know. And yeah, met some friends there who also wanted to be comics. We started going to open mics together, and that was pretty much it. Man, the Improv has been so integral in pushing me to the next level each time, and super supportive of my career. I recorded my record there. Yeah, they're family. So I can't wait to come home and see everybody.
What was the record called? Is that Grudgery?
It's called Grudgery. Absolutely.
Gotcha. And it came out in 2018, but debuted #1 on iTunes comedy charts. So that's
It
not bad.
did. Not too bad.
Not too bad. Well, real quick, actually now I'm curious. So if you got into the open mics and the comedy classes and stuff at the Improv a couple years after graduating Howard, what was the original trajectory? Like what did you major in, and what were you planning on doing before you sort of got onto this whole stand-up avenue?
So it's so funny. Like when I started comedy, I was working in like higher education marketing. That was kind of the career path that I had until I quit and did comedy full time. But in Howard, I majored in television production. So it's kind of interesting to finally come back full circle and be able to do comedy, which I found that I didn't expect and I loved, and to now be writing for TV, which is what I wanted to do when I was 18. So it's kind of awesome.
That's fantastic. Well, now you're educating still, just in a different way.
Absolutely.
You can slip some, teaching into the jokes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, then, and of course, we also have to remind our listeners after you got started at the Improv. I guess one of the huge, big, at least national breaks for you was on Last Comic Standing in 2008. So, how much do you think that really, was a catapult for you?
Oh my goodness, it was a huge springboard. Last Comic Standing was. The producer of Last Comic Standing is actually a good friend now, but she is also Wanda Sykes's producing partner. So they produced Last Comic Standing again in 2014, and I've done a bunch of projects with them. They are the production company behind the Upshaws and other shows I've written for. So it just kind of forged a relationship outside of the exposure that it gave my stand-up. And it's just, you hang around the business long enough, you know enough people, and doors open. So, I mean, that was really the beginning of everything.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, is there anything else before we hop off here? Anything else we should you want to plug? I know we talked about the Upshaws. We talked about They Ready. I mean, we've covered a lot, but and anything else in the pipeline that we're able to share?
Nothing. There's not really much in the pipeline to share other than stay tuned for season 2 of the Upshaws and come see me. There's going to be jokes. There weren't as many jokes here in this interview, but I promise I'm saving them for the Improv stage. Come see us.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you joining us again, everyone. It's Erin Jackson coming to the DC Improv on, make sure I get it right, Friday, February 11th and Saturday, February 12th. So get your tickets now. Hey, thanks so much for doing this again.
Thank you.
We also spoke last April when Jackson reopened the DC Improv after a year of COVID-19 restrictions. Hey, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you. I grew up in New Jersey, but I went to Howard and was living in DC when I started comedy.
Gotcha. So that's the DC connection. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you're at Howard amongst all those other genius creatives, because I feel like everybody comes from Howard. I mean, Chadwick Boseman, everybody. How did you actually get into comedy? Like where were the first few clubs you played around here?
Wow. Well, I actually took the very first class they had at the DC Improv. It was just a 1-day seminar. They didn't have like a comedy school yet. But yeah, I did that kind of like on a dare from my boyfriend. And that wasn't the first club I worked for a weekend, but it became my home club. The very first club I worked in the area was actually the Baltimore Improv, which was pretty short-lived. But then I found a home at the DC Improv and started working there all the way from when I was an MC to when I was a headliner. And so, yeah, they're family there. I'm so excited to for them to ask me, and then to just it feels like an honor to kind of reopen the club. I'm so excited for them to be back.
Yeah, speak to that a little bit. I mean, how crazy has it been, this past year, not having many places to play? Like, have you been doing any tours, or have you sort of been sidelined for a year?
Now, I've basically been sidelined for a year. I did tape a special during this time, which is kind of weird, but it just happened. So yeah, it's hard. You get rusty really quickly. You realize I work usually every night, and 3 or 4 times a night I'm getting up, and then nothing, cold turkey. And definitely I was being responsible. So the shows that I was doing were, if you can call them shows, I mean, they're shows, but I was doing them like on Zoom, and yeah, just not the same. So it's been a hard year to just be away from something as like electrifying as comedy and being on stage.
Oh yeah, and it's been. I mean, I'm with you. I haven't really gone and done anything for like a year. I've been doing Zoom interviews like this.
Yeah,
entertainment reporter with nothing to cover. But no, there has been some virtual stuff. But I feel like we're about to enter into another bizarre phase where things are slowly opening. But for instance, you can only have. I think there's like a maximum of 50 people that can be at the Improv. So
right,
your stuff. I think Thursday and Saturday are already sold out, and so but there's still tickets for Friday, I believe. But yeah, it's going to be crazy. But I'm reading here on the website that everyone that comes on Thursday for the big grand reopening is going to get a souvenir DC Improv mask and pint glasses. So there you go.
I wonder if I get one. I hope I got one. I want a souvenir.
They better save them for the actual, headliners. I mean,
let me say this, Jason, you feel kind of famous during quarantine. It's a nice feeling because you sell out everywhere. You're just like, you know what? I am a draw at 33% capacity.
That's true.
People will not fill that room for me. I'm excited. Yeah.
That's awesome. What sort of, I don't want you to burn through any of your best jokes or anything, but let's say, what sort of topics do you get into? What are some of the themes in this routine?
Well, I'm still working it out, because I haven't had a lot of time to work it out. So guys, you're coming to the first comedy show. It's going to be fun. We've got some other great comics on the bill, but we're all feeling it out. I'm going to talk a little bit, obviously, about the past year, because we can't ignore the fact that you've got on masks and there's only 50 of you. So we've got to address it, but I don't want to, beat people over the head with COVID. We all know, we've been there. And now is a time to kind of start coming out of that. So we'll talk about just life stuff I've observed over the past year, the kind of things that I'm looking for in a partner, because now I feel like, Jason, I have to look at every potential partner as someone I might have to be quarantined with. And it's a different set. Right. It's a different set of qualities you're looking for. And sometimes they're very disparate, right? It's like, I need a guy who's handy, who can give me pedicures and do my hair. Like, I need all of these things in one man, and it's going to be a challenge to find.
Oh yeah. I mean, my wife and I have gotten to know each other in a bunch of different ways in here for a year. And, but I don't know if you're going to be able to, I don't know if you're going to find someone that can be handy and do pedicures. Good luck. But
look, he's out there. I know he's out there.
For sure. Let's talk about some of your career highlights. Because I know a lot of our listeners probably saw you on, Last Comic Standing and the Ellen Show. Like, how did you get those early breaks? You mentioned you were playing sort of the DC Improv. What brought you to the, how did you actually fill in the gap for me to how you actually got on those TV gigs?
Well, the first thing I think I ever taped was the Last Comic Standing. That was about 13 years ago now. I actually had the producer of Last Comic Standing, who is a great friend now. She used to be a stand-up comic, and I actually met her when I opened for her at the DC Improv. And I just stayed in touch over the years. And she's a really fierce advocate of women comics. And, over the years we stayed in touch, and she was a producer as well. So she would think of me for projects, and it kind of just came about like that on would you like to do Last Comic Standing? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And I wasn't ready at all to do it. It was pretty early in my career, but it was yeah, it was a great opportunity. And then the Ellen show saw me on Last Comic. I clearly didn't win, but she liked what I did and then invited me onto her show. So it was kind of like a surreal year back in '08. To be on Last Comic Standing as your first TV show. I actually taped something for Comedy Central that year too. And then that fall, I'm on Ellen with my favorite. I'm like, what? I still have a day job. Like I was still coming back and working at a newspaper in DC. And Ellen was like, you still have a job? I'm like, yeah, I definitely do. I need money.
Wait, what newspaper?
Well, it was a trade paper. It was the Chronicle of Higher Education and Chronicle of Philanthropy.
Oh, cool.
Which are higher education and philanthropy papers. Yeah. So I worked over there for quite a few years. Loved it. I probably would still be, well, I don't know if I would still be working there because it's a newspaper, but
they've all gone online.
Yeah, no, and I worked in digital and online marketing, so it was a great, it was a great position to have. But I loved it, and only comedy pulled me away from that company.
Wow, that's great. So wait, where are you based now? Are you based in LA?
No, I'm in New Jersey, right outside New York City.
Jersey. Gotcha. Okay, where you are originally from?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Awesome. Well, we mentioned Last Comic Standing, mentioned Ellen. You said you had your other Comedy Central thing. I know most recently you were on Netflix on They Ready with Tiffany Haddish.
Yeah.
How big of a treat was that? I mean, she has zero, blanks to give. I feel like that's her secret. It's just like
she's just so authentically
authentic.
Herself.
Yes.
And she's been successful that way. And it's amazing, for her to share her platform with me. We had no prior relationship. She just knew my comedy, was a fan, and gave me this huge platform, which is just, it's kind of like, who does that? But I'm so grateful. It got, definitely gave me something to prepare for and look forward to during that, awful year. And then at the beginning of this year, something to be really proud about. And yeah, it's a dream come true. You never think, oh, global pandemic, and I'm going to get the biggest opportunity in my career. And, it's a little stressful prepping for stuff again when you don't have stage time, but, you kind of like, you have to figure it out. So it was amazing. And yeah, definitely a highlight to a not so great year.
That's awesome. Well, hopefully this will be another highlight after a not so great year. How cool is it that, this is helping reopen the DC Improv. I mean, you're going to be the first one where they reopen for live shows. It's kind of like a full circle moment for you, since that's where you started back in the college days. So how cool is it that it's sort of coming full circle?
It's pretty great. It's pretty great. When they ask me, I'm like, are you sure? There's not someone else you want to ask, but it's an honor. And I'm like, whatever you guys need me to do, I'm there for it. I had a date, that I was coming when that got canceled last year, mm-hmm. which would have been my first time back in a while. And so I'm really, not only did they honor it, but they stepped it up a notch and gave me this opportunity. So I'm so excited, going to get together. We're going to put on a really great show. So if you get an opportunity to get those Friday tickets, do it. It's going to be fun. We've got some really, Lafayette Wright and Paris Sachet also on the show, two of my favorites, and they're local to DC. So it's going to be a fun weekend.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a great time. And that's an honor that they chose you to reopen things up. And I know it's selling out fast, so we'll get this up as soon as we can. And hopefully people can maybe sell out the whole thing at those 50 seat maximums, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully you get your souvenir mask and your pint glass. We'll push for that.
I feel like I know a guy. So
I think so. All right, cool. Well, thanks so much for joining us. This was a blast. And, best of luck at the show. And thanks for getting live comedy back going here.
Yes. Thanks so much, Jason.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.